Today's story is called The Ogre of Rashomon. The Ogre of Rashomon. Ogre is a monster, a huge giant, fearful, not kind one. It's an evil one. Okay. The Ogre of Rashomon. A long time ago, this is a Japanese story. A long time ago, I don't know how many years ago. Oh, I should have looked it up. Let's say 500 years ago. Okay. People in Kyoto. There is a city called Kyoto. Okay. There is a city called Kyoto in Japan, and the people in Kyoto were very afraid because they heard about the stories of this fearful, terrible, awful, bad, evil ogre who came to Kyoto, to the area of the Gate of Rashomon. And this people were afraid of this ogre because this ogre was a dreadful ogre. Dreadful means fearful. Not fearful, scary. Dreadful, extremely bad, and scary. Okay, dreadful. Dreadful ogre. So people were afraid of this dreadful ogre because they said, it's just a story, but people talked about it. They said this ogre is, around this gate of Rashomon. Rashomon is it's a gate, name of the gate. And this ogre comes after sunset, in the twilight, after sunset, the ogre appears, and he is at the gate, and then when the people walk by the gate, this ogre will catch these people and take them somewhere. And these people never come back. And so people began to say, this ogre eats people. This ogre is a cannibal. Where is this? Yes. Two M's. Cannibal is a people. The monster who eats people is a cannibal. And so he is a horrible cannibal. But people were missing, and those people never came back. And so they thought this ogre not only killed people, but also ate people. And so the people were very afraid. They were in great fear. And so after sunset, when the sun went down, nobody went outside in Kyoto because they were so afraid. And so nobody really ventured out to go outside. Well, it was not a good thing because they used to go outside and have good time, They used to go out eating and drinking and get together and things like that at night. But then now everybody stayed home because they were very afraid. Well, one night, there were these 4 warriors, samurais, 4 soldiers. Warrior means fighters, brave fighters. Okay, 4 warriors were having get together, and so let's say this one person. Well, looks like a flower. Let's see. Okay, this is one man, okay, and this is another man, and this is another man, and this is another man. So the 4 warriors, the samurais or the fighters, they were having a get together. They were having drinking sake together, drinking Japanese wine together. They were drinking and they were eating some fish, like a raw fish and stewed fish and broiled fish and different kinds of fish dishes. And then they were having sake together. They were drinking a lot. They were quaffing. I think it was, just a sec, yeah? Yes, quaff. Quaff. They were quaffing sake. Quaffing means drink big, not just a little bit, but they were quaffing sake and eating different kinds of fish. Well, one man, actually I know these people's names. One was Watanabe, and another one was Sakata. This is a famous story, I guess. Okay, I looked it up on the internet. And another one was called Usui, and the last one was Urabeno. Okay, so these 4 people were talking, and then Mr. Sakata said to the other 3, I hear that there is this ogre, dreadful ogre, very bad, dreadful ogre, appears at the gate of Rashomon, and he catches people and eats people. Well, isn't that very scary? Mr. Sakata said. And then Mr. Watanabe said, nonsense, he said. That's an old woman's talk. There are no ogres anymore. He said, our master, our chief soldier, Raiko. Okay, there was a person called Raiko. Okay, he beat them all up the other day in the mountain called Oe Mountain, and so he, beat them all, and therefore no one should be alive anymore. And Mr. Watanabe said, even when 1 or 2 are still alive, they will not come to Kyoto because they would be too scared to come to Kyoto, because our chief, Raiko, is going to defeat, the dispatch, kill them anyway. And so Mr. Watanabe said, that's nonsense. And then Mr. Sakata said, well, maybe if you are so doubtful, do you think I'm lying to you? And Mr. Watanabe said, no, I'm not saying you're lying, but I don't think it's true, he said. And then Mr. Sakata challenged Mr. Watanabe. He said, why don't you go up there tonight at Rashomon Gate and find out whether this Oni, the ogre, appears or not. Mr. Sakata challenged Mr. Watanabe. Now, Mr. Watanabe, he's a samurai, he is a soldier. He did not want to be seen or seen as a coward. And so he immediately stood up. And he said, I'll go, he said. And so he buckled on his long sword, sword. And then he put on a coat of armor, like an iron vest. And then he tied on his large helmet. He put on put on a cap, helmet, something that samurais wear, okay? Not samurais, but the people who fight wear. And so he was ready to go on a horse. But then he said, I'm going, but you may think that I may not go there. And so what I want you guys to do is, he said, here's a piece of paper. Write down your names. And then I'll take this paper with me, and then I will put it at the gate of Rashomon, so that you will see that I was actually there tomorrow. You can go there tomorrow and see. So Mr. Sakata signed his name, and Mr. Usui signed his name, and Mr. Urabeno signed his name. Okay? And then he rolled it up and put it in his whatever, the pocket. Or I don't know if they had a pocket, but he put it somewhere. And he got on the horse and he went. Okay. Now, this night, it was a dark night. And soon after he began to go into the direction of the Rashomon Gate, the storm started. Now the rain began to come down very heavily. And the wind was howling like a, where was this? Yes, the wind howled like wolves. The wind, yeah? Ooh. Howl is like the dogs and the wolves. Ooh, that's howl. And so the wind howled like wolves. Okay. And I'm sure there was the thunder going bang. There was lightning and things like that. And so it was a very scary night. And ordinary people, ordinary men would not have gone outside because it was a dark night and everybody was fearful of this ogre, and it was raining and the wind was blowing very heavily, so nobody would have gone out. But brave Mr. Watanabe was dauntless. He was very dauntless. Where was this? Dauntless. Okay? Dauntless means brave, bold, daring, courageous. He's dauntless. He's not a coward. Okay? He's very brave. And so he was on the horse. He just went, he sped on into the night. Sped on into the night. Dark night. Okay. Now, he came to the Rashomon Gate. He got off the horse and he looked around. But it was very dark. He couldn't see very much. But he didn't see anybody there. He didn't feel anybody was there. And he thought, maybe it was not true. Maybe I was right. he thought. And so he took out this paper, okay? Well, I'm going to erase this. He took out this paper. Let's see. Rashomon Gate. Let's see. Okay, this is Rashomon Gate. Okay. Now, he this is his horse. Okay, this is his horse. And so he was here, and he was going to stick this piece of paper, here, on the, it's a story because it's raining, and, I don't know how he's put this paper on the Rashomon Gate, but anyway, he put this paper there so that people will see, the next day, and he made sure that nobody's here, and no ogre showed up, and so he decided to go home. He decided to get on the horse and go home. Then suddenly he felt something behind him. He felt somebody was there behind him. Suddenly somebody grabbed him by his helmet. And then he thought, who is this? And so he quickly took out his sword, and he went, I don't know how he did, but he went whack. When he went like this, he went, and he cut something. And then he heard this loud cry. He heard somebody went, ah! Okay, loud yell. Yell means cry. And he knew, because when somebody grabbed him, seized him, caught him by his helmet, and so I forgot to tell you, he touched it. When he touched it, it was somebody's arm, and it was really, really big arm, and also it had lots and lots of hair. It was as big as a tree trunk. Trunk is, this is a tree, and this is trunk, okay? Trunk could mean the trunk of a car, or it could mean a suitcase, a trunk. But in this, or the elephant's nose is a trunk, but this one right here is a trunk too. And so when he touched it, he felt something, and it was as big as a tree trunk, but it had hair, and so he knew it was an ogre, and he thought, my goodness, there is an ogre. And so he took out his thing. We go back. He took out his sword, and he went whack. He cut it. When he cut the ogre's arm, the ogre made a loud yell, okay? And suddenly the ogre stood here, okay? The ogre stood here. Now the ogre was as big as the gate, and when he saw his face was very, very scary. His face was very scary. Let's see. Okay, his face was very scary. Okay, he had a big nose, and he had a scary eyes, and he had a big mouth, and he had horns and big ears, and there were sharp teeth, and his eyes were flashing, like a flashlight, flashlight. When you are in a dark place, you have to have a flashlight. Yeah, his eyes flashed. Yeah, flashed. And when he, oops. Okay. His arm is half cut off. Yeah. So his eyes flashed, and when he breathed, there was fire coming out of his mouth. Mr. Watanabe, he was very, very brave. He had his sword, and he wanted to fight with the ogre. So with the ogre, he fought face to face for a long time. But the ogre, because he lost his arm, and he became a little bit afraid that he might lose, and so the ogre decided to leave, to escape. Now he turned around and he began to run away, and so Mr. Watanabe got on the horse and he chased after the ogre. Mr. Watanabe chased after the ogre, but the ogre was faster. And so finally Mr. Watanabe lost the ogre, and ogre went away. Okay? Now, so he came back. He came back, and when he came back, yeah, he came back. He came back. When he came back, because it's dark, you cannot really see anything. He lost his balance, and he almost fell down because he stumbled upon something. He stumbled. He lost his balance. His foot caught something, and he almost fell. Okay, his foot caught something, and and it was the ogre's hair. It was ogre's arm. When he saw when he was the ogre's arm, he stooped. Okay, he stooped down and picked it up. He stooped down and picked it up. The ogre's huge arm. Huge means big, huge arm. And he was happy. Mr. Watanabe was glad that he had something like this to take back home. And so he picked it up, and he was happy because he secured the evidence. He fought against the ogre, and he had his arm, and so he took this arm and he got on the horse, and he went back to his friends, his comrades. Okay. Now, when he came back, okay, so there were 3 people, sitting, and then he came back and he said, look, he showed big arm to these people. And then they said, wow, they said, you are our hero. And so after this, everybody in Kyoto knew about Mr. Watanabe's brave action. They knew all about Mr. Watanabe's brave, courageous deed, and they all talked about him. And then they came to see the ogre's arm. They came and said, wow, this is good. This is not good, but this is huge. And they were so happy that Mr. Watanabe, almost killed this ogre. But after a while, Mr. Watanabe became a little bit uneasy because he knew Ogre is very revengeful. The ogre is very unhappy about losing his arm, and Mr. Watanabe knew Ogre will come back again to get his arm back. And so he decided to make a very, very strong box, and decided to put the ogre's arm in here and put the strong lid so that nobody will be able to open it and nobody will be able to see it. And then he had this in his own room, and he wanted to watch it, keep it in his room so that nobody will come and touch or open or do something with this thing, the ogre's arm. And so he was very careful about this because he was afraid that the ogre would come back again to get this arm back anytime, he thought. Well, I don't know how many days passed, but one day or one night, this is Mr. Watanabe's house. Oh, I will draw it a little bit to the left. Okay. This is Mr. Watanabe's house. Okay? One night, maybe late at night, like 10 o'clock, someone came, knocked on the door. So Mr. Watanabe's servant went there, and he said, "Who is it?" The woman said, "Please open the door." It was an old woman. So the servant opened the door. The woman looked like a very respectable woman. She was wearing a really nice clothes, nice, beautiful kimono, and she looked like a really good woman. And so, okay, yeah, okay, so good, okay, yes. This woman looked very respectable in appearance. She looked very respectable in appearance, means she was wearing a really nice clothes, okay. And she probably had a very good manner too. And he said, "Excuse me, who are you?" And then she said, "I am Mr. Watanabe's babysitter. When he was a little boy, I used to babysit him. I was his nurse," she said to him. She said, "I would like to see my master," she said. "I would like to see him because I've heard about this ogre's arm, and I came here to congratulate him. I am so proud of him." she said to him. But it was at 10 o'clock at night. And so he said, just a moment, please. I will go and talk to Mr. Watanabe. So he went back to Mr. Watanabe, and he said, Mr. Watanabe was sitting, and he said to Mr. Watanabe that his old babysitter was there. Now, Mr. Watanabe thought, why did she come this late? But then he began to remember the time when he was a little boy, and the time when this nurse or the babysitter was very kind to him, and a very gentle feeling began to be felt. He began to feel very good about this woman. And so he said, all right, let her come in, he said to the servant. So the servant went back to her and said, please come in. And so the servant came into Mr. Watanabe's room, yeah? And she sat down, okay? She sat down and she bowed and she greeted him and she said, I am so proud of you. Congratulations. I have heard about this ogre's arm. Everybody's talking about it. And you are such a brave man. And I am very proud of you, he said. Okay? She said to him. And then they talked about this and that. But then a little bit later, she said, you know, Master, she said, I am an old lady. Before I die, I would like to see the ogre's arm, she said to him. Mr. Watanabe said, no, I am not allowing anybody to see the ogre's arm. I cannot grant your request. Grant means grant means give the permission. I cannot grant your request. I cannot let you see it. No. Your request is not answered. Okay? Then she said, but why? She said, but why? I am your old nurse. And then he said, because Ogre is very revengeful, eager to revenge, eager to pay back. He will come back and try to kill me and try to get the arm back. And therefore I am very careful. I do not want anybody to see the ogre's arm. I don't even want you to know where it is, where the ogre's arm is kept. Oh, ogre's arm is kept, he said. But then she said, but I am your old babysitter, she said. But he still persisted in refusing. He still continued to say no, he said. And then, after she stopped begging, she began to threaten. She said, well, I am your old babysitter. You think I am a spy sent by the ogre. Do you think ogre sent me to you? Do you think I'm a spy or something? She said to him. Well, when he heard this, and when she seriously begging, please, she was earnestly entreating. Entreat is begging. Please, begging. Earnestly means seriously. Seriously begging him to let her see it. Finally, he said, "All right," he said, "I'll show you." And so he stood up and he took her to another room, and at in the corner of the room, okay, here's this is not the front gate anymore, okay? So there was this box. This heavy lid. Yeah, this is the lid, okay, the cap of the box. So there was this heavy lid, and Mr. Watanabe came here, and he said to the old woman to come here. Now, the old woman began to walk to the box very slowly. First very slowly, but then she quickened her pace and came to the box. Yeah? Mr. Watanabe lifted the lid up. Okay, lifted the lid up. Now, when he lifted the lid up, she came very close to the box. She came very close to the box, and suddenly she pushed her arm into the box, and she picked it up, and then she said, "Oh joy, I have got my arm back again." "Great," she said. I've got my arm back again," she said. Okay, when she said that, oh my gosh, she suddenly transformed into a big giant ogre. Mr. Watanabe jumped back. He jumped back, and then he took a sword, and he began to fight against the ogre. But the ogre didn't want to fight anymore because he knew Mr. Watanabe was very strong, and he just got his arm back. So he quickly turned around, he jumped on the roof, and went into the mountains, escaped into the mountains. Ogre is gone. Oh, Mr. Watanabe was mad. He was frustrated because he got deceived. The old woman came and lied to him. He was tricked. He was not happy. He wanted to dispatch. Dispatch means to kill. Dispatch the ogre, but the ogre escaped. Yes, he was not very happy. But ogre left, and the ogre is gone. Ogre is gone, and the ogre never came back to Kyoto to trouble people. He never came back to Kyoto to, take them away, and I don't know if he killed the people, and we don't know if the ogre ate people, but the ogre never troubled Kyoto again. So the people could go out to cities after dark, and they they began to enjoy their life in the evening without fear because of Mr. Watanabe's courageous action. So, the brave deeds of Mr. Watanabe have never been forgotten, and everybody remembers how wonderful Mr. Watanabe was. The end.